everyone, welcome back to the channel and to today's viewer's email, which has come in from a guy called Paul. So a huge shout out to Paul for sending this in. We all really appreciate it. And as always, if any of you guys have a story to share about yourself or someone you know, as long as it's Thailand related, please do so by using the email address in the description. We rely on these emails coming in to be able to continue with the channel, so all stories are most welcome. What we're going to do though is read through the email in its entirety, then I'll break it down, give you my opinions, my take, then I'll open the floor for you guys in the comments to give your ideas as well. Don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, comment, share and all those good things, and a big thanks in advance. The subject of this email from Paul was my dream in tatters. So let's get into it. John, I never thought I'd share this with anyone, but I can see the value in helping other people to not make the same mistakes that I made. I'm back in England now, have been for a few years, but Thailand was meant to be my home until everything went wrong. Maybe it was my own fault, and I'll leave that for the viewers to decide, but my whole Thailand misadventure nearly finished me off for good. From the beginning, I was lucky enough to retire early at the age of 42. I sold my business and house in England and decided to travel the world, to find a new place to call home and to reinvent myself. When I say retire, I had no intention of just sitting back and not doing anything. I wanted to get involved in a new project. Where, what, or how, well, that was another matter. In hindsight, I probably didn't have enough money to retire, approximately £450,000, but I was happy with the way things were going and felt confident after the small success I had in England. Maybe overconfident, but we'll get into that later. I set off on my round-the-world adventure in early 2015. Starting out in Canada, I travelled south through the US, then Mexico, before exploring much of South America. While I loved a lot of this, I felt like this part of the world was not going to be for me long term. From there, I headed back to Europe, hired a car and drove most of the continent. I loved Greece and put that country on my list of places I could potentially move to. I'd been on the road for about 6 months now and was loving life. I decided next to visit Asia. I planned to spend the most time here as this was the continent that most interested me. Heading first to India, not really for me, then to Singapore via Sri Lanka. I loved Singapore, the history, the cleanliness and the order, but quickly realised that it was going to be far too expensive for me to live there. After spending a few weeks exploring the city, I travelled north through Malaysia, a place I liked, but not really so much. Into Thailand I went next. Crossing the Malaysian-Thai border gave me no sense of what was to come. At first I was underwhelmed by what I saw of Thailand, but this was the very far south. I found some transport and headed to Phuket. Wow was the reaction that I had when I arrived there. It was like nowhere else I'd travelled to in the world prior, and the place had a feeling of serenity as well as that of endless opportunity. It reminded me of all the best bits of all the other places I travelled to, all in one location. I got to exploring the island, and the more I saw, the more it felt right. Could this be home? I spent about a month in Phuket and knew I needed to see the rest of the country. What else was on offer here? Surely nowhere else could be as good. After doing Europe by car, I decided to rent a car in Thailand as well. I'd read how bad the driving was in Thailand, so I was a little apprehensive, but my experience was the exact opposite. I loved driving there. I headed out of Phuket, first to Phang Nga, then Krabi, two places that I loved just as much as Phuket. I then headed north, stopping off first in Hua Hin, another great little city, before hitting Bangkok, where I returned the car. I still get shivers to this day when I think about my first walk around Bangkok. That city is something special, and I was quickly beginning to realise that Thailand was going to be my home. However, after spending 4 amazing days in Bangkok, my visa, which I'd already extended for 30 days, was due to run out, so I decided to visit Cambodia, Laos and Vietnam before heading back to Thailand. These countries were great, but nothing compared to Thailand. Upon my return to Thailand, I first went to Bangkok, then headed to Chiang Mai to look at the north. I drove a bike around the region and really liked it, but my head was set that further south was where I wanted to be. After returning to Bangkok, I decided this is the place for me. I could live in Bangkok and travel to other parts of the country as and when I needed a break. I looked into visa options and decided to buy the Thailand Elite. And there I was. After about a year on the road, I found my new home and was ready to begin this new chapter of my life. Looking back now, if only I had stayed to myself, maybe tried to pick up bits and pieces of work online to supplement my income, things may have turned out better. I had spent an absolute fortune on my round the world trip. I could have done it for a lot less, but I was buzzing. You're not going to like this, but all in it cost me around £150,000, about a third of my savings. This included the Thailand Elite visa. Before I continue, I need to mention that I did have a string of girlfriends while travelling. I don't want the next bit to surprise you. I had managed to stay single in the UK, a few relationships but nothing serious. But I did think it was about time to settle down and maybe even have a family. I was also thinking about getting into a business at some point. One thing I hoped to do was open a small guest house or hotel, or even take one over. I thought I knew a lot about this, having stayed in so many hotels on my trip. But this is getting ahead of things. By now, we were in mid-2016 and I was renting a condo in Bangkok. Looking back again, I was paying too much for a condo I didn't need, approximately 30,000 baht a month. I could have had a condo for half that price, that would have been okay, but I thought I was on the road to greatness and that I had everything all figured out. I was spending all in around 150,000 baht a month, living life and looking for opportunities. It was around this time that I met her, this sweet little thing, at a club along Ratchadepisek Road. It started out innocent enough. We got talking that night and I got her contact information. She wasn't my first Thai girlfriend, but something hit me that night. The next day I messaged her asking if she would like to go out the same night. But she was busy, she said, but the day after was good. She was all I thought about until the time finally came where we met up for dinner in Ekamai. I had just turned 44 and she was 29. We talked for hours and I got to learn that she worked as a receptionist at a big hotel in Bangkok. She was from a place called Ayutthaya and had been living in Bangkok for about 8 years. I told her about myself as well, how I had travelled to find the perfect place to live and now I had dreams to open a small hotel somewhere in Thailand. She even said that this was a great idea. At the end of the night, I asked if she would like to meet again. She said yes, and it was arranged that we would go for lunch the following day as she was working the next evening. When I got back to my condo, I was pumping. I was living in paradise, I had met what I thought could be a perfect girl, and I was loving life. I was quite aware though that I was blowing through my savings way too fast and I needed to settle down. Another £20,000 had gone and I wanted to find something to do. I wanted to follow the dream, but that comes later. We saw each other every day nearly for the next 3 months until I asked her to move in with me. She jumped at the opportunity and now I had a live-in girlfriend. I even convinced her to stop working and to travel Thailand with me. I wanted to really get to know her. I knew I would have to spend some money, but I considered it an investment. We went all over Thailand during the next 2 months and we not once fell out or argued. It was the best 2 months of my life and she seemed to be so happy as well. When we got back to Bangkok, I asked her to marry me at the top of the Bayok building during a nice meal and she said yes. My life was finally coming together. Looking back, the money I was spending was crazy. I was blowing through it, and I suppose she thought I would be able to do this indefinitely. She took me to visit her parents in Ayutthaya. They lived out of the city, but they were not in any way poor, nothing like the Isan stories you hear. We told them we were to marry, and they seemed pleased. The ceremony was arranged, and I agreed to pay a dowry of 250,000 baht when the day came. I didn't mind, and we got married legally as well. The ceremony was great. The whole family was there, friends, and yes, I got to drinking a bit as well, but we had a great time. By this time, I was down to around £200,000 in savings, and as we were now married, I knew it was time to find something to do. I always reverted back to the idea of a hotel. Only a small one, but it was a dream, and as my now wife used to work in a hotel, it seemed like a good fit. So, we got to looking for the perfect hotel within our budget. I wanted to spend around 7 million baht and buy the building as well. But I quickly realised that this was not going to be possible in any of the major tourist areas. I would have had needed at least 5 times this for even a very small hotel. But we didn't get up. We were back visiting our family one day when we decided to go and do the tourist side of Ayutthaya. And there we found a small hotel for sale. It had 13 rooms. One big one on the top floor that we thought we could live in. It was like a small apartment. It was quite basic, but in reasonable area. It sat on a rather small plot of land, so there was no room for a pool or gym, but it excited us, and it was priced at 13 million baht. This was still way over budget, but if we paid 50%, we could mortgage the rest. After doing all the sums, it seemed like a no-brainer. The rooms went for 600 baht a night. We thought if we averaged 10 rooms full per day, we'd be bringing in around 180,000 baht per month. Minus staff and other costs, we should be left with 120,000, which, if we deposited 6 million baht and got a mortgage for the rest, after mortgage payments of 60,000 every month, we'd be left with 60,000 in income as well. Not a fortune, but would be on the way. We went back to Bangkok to think things through, and we ultimately decided to make an offer of 12.5 million baht. It was accepted, and my wife was approved for the mortgage on the property. And 2 months later, we were moved in. The apartment at the top of the hotel became our new home, and we were now business owners. I had around 1.8 million baht of cash left. This should have scared me given the huge commitment we'd taken on, but at the time it didn't. We were now in early 2018 and our future looked great. The hotel was working as planned, but then. When March came around, the amount of people booking the hotel plummeted. I had no idea what was going on. My wife said it's low season, so no need to worry, things will pick up around in 6 months' time. The 60,000 baht income I was expecting every month didn't look possible. What had I missed? Why did I not know about low season? It seemed like my wife knew about it. Why didn't she tell me beforehand? I could have thought more carefully about things. We had a huge argument like nothing we'd ever experienced before. I was so cross. I was expecting 60,000 baht a month after everything, and during March and April we barely broke even. And I was eating back into my savings, something I desperately did not want to do. Looking back, I can only blame myself. I had never really talked about money with my wife. I didn't say how much I had or what I did before. I just spent, often lavishly, so perhaps I gave her the wrong idea. But at the time I was panicking like mad, and I laid everything out for her so she knew exactly what was what. It was like a light turned off. She reacted very badly, saying I should have told her. She would not have allowed us to buy the hotel if she'd have known. We had a very rocky May and June and actually lost money in these months. My wife showed a very different side to herself at this time. Her biggest worry was what she was going to tell her family. By the next high season, things picked up, but we all know what happened next. COVID hit. Bookings ceased. We had to let go of the staff, but the mortgage payments were still required to be paid. About 60,000 a month. And at this time, I had 1.2 million baht in the bank. We'd be done in less than a year given all our living expenses. Things were not the same with my wife, and it was around this time that I found out she had been seeing a Thai guy from the area behind my back. This had been going on ever since we had that huge argument. She wasn't the person I thought she was, or perhaps I was just plain stupid. I had 2 choices: leave her now and still have a bit of money, or push on with things and try and sort out the marriage and fix the hotel. Perhaps we could borrow some money until things turned around. She made my mind up for me. She was pregnant, but not with me. We divorced not long after, and yes, she still owns the hotel. Her new partner had a bit of money and was able to pay the mortgage. I left with only 1.2 million baht to my name after starting out my world adventure with 450,000 pounds. Immediately after this, I was so angry with my now ex-wife. She had cheated on me when the going got tough. As soon as there were any signs that I didn't have the money she thought she changed. Witnessing this change was very hard to experience. I loved her more than anything, but she didn't care. I often think if COVID didn't hit, would we still be together? Would we have worked things out? I doubt it though, as the hotel was doomed with my financial position. I could not afford to wither the down months. I'm writing this from England now, and I'm back on my feet thankfully. I got back into the business I was in before, and I'm well on my way to being able to actually retire in Thailand in about 3 years' time. When I do it again, I will not blow money so easily. I will not try to do a business there, and I will definitely not get married again. Thailand is a great place for sure, but don't get involved with things like I did. It's simply not worth it. I really appreciate you taking the time to read this. I hope you can share it on your channel. Let everyone know how I went wrong, so hopefully they don't make the same mistakes as me. It's definitely not worth getting involved to such a level like I did unless you exactly know what you're doing. I thought that because I had success in England, I would be able to replicate that success in Thailand for all to see. But I was very wrong. I chose the wrong woman, although she seemed right at the start, and I made some extremely bad decisions. I travelled the world and I spent lavishly. I should have saved money, I should have been cautious, and I should have done everything better. But as I said, I'm lucky that I'm getting back on my feet and I will actually be able to retire soon. Thank you, Paul. Wow, Paul, I really appreciate you sending this story in. I think it's a great story, and I'm extremely glad that you're getting back on your feet at the moment. I think that's the main thing that we need to take from this story. You failed miserably in your time in Thailand, but you're getting back to things. But I think the fact that you still like Thailand and you still hope to move back to Thailand at some point, that definitely says everything for me. You love the country, you love it here, and you want to be here. So I don't blame you for that. And next time, don't do the same things. But I'm scrolling back to the beginning of the email, and you said you had £450,000. Now that's a lot of money. That's an awful lot of money. But perhaps to retire at 42, yeah, you could have come to Thailand and lived a basic life off the interest or off some kind of investment income that this amount of money would provided. You couldn't have lived lavishly on that amount. But the fact that you ate through savings traveling the world, nothing particularly wrong with that in my mind. You got to enjoy yourself. But once you got to Thailand, you had ideas to do a business that, yeah, perhaps it was out of the league. And to me, everything went wrong when you decided to get a mortgage. And if you didn't do that, and you tried to find a bit of work online like you said in your email, things could have turned out so much better, couldn't they? And I don't get much sort of impression of what your wife was like, apart from she seemed to be perfect until she found out you weren't as rich as she thought she was, and then she changed. I don't know what to make of that. I think the thing is you've got to be open and honest, right at the start, and tell people right at the start exactly what's what, so they don't get any wrong impressions, and you don't see a side of them that could perhaps be, pretty ugly like the one you saw. Imagine just as soon as she found out, she immediately found someone else and got pregnant as well. Now that does hurt. That really does hurt. But yeah, I think reading by the email, this is not something you wanted to share, but the fact that you're sharing it to warn other people, I think that's very, very commendable. And you're back on your feet, so yeah, don't worry too much about it. Hope you can get yourself to Thailand in another 3 years' time, have another go. And perhaps just rent somewhere in Bangkok. You seem to like Bangkok. Take it easy and don't spend lavishly when you're perhaps not in a position to do so. So that would be my take from this. I think this is a fantastic story, very fascinating, very interesting. And as always, I do really appreciate you sending this in. So thanks so much, Paul. Cheers, mate. We really appreciate it. But before I end it, any of you guys, please do give this video a like, comment, share, subscribe, all those good things. We do require more stories to come in. We do require to continue getting stories in. So the more interactions we get, the more chance YouTube is going to push this to more people, which in turn means we more chance to continue to be able to get in emails. And really appreciate all you guys watching, and I'll catch you in the next viewer's email. Cheers and bye for now.